Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves, episode 10 of season 5. I'm Joshua Buckley, alongside host Paul LePage.
Greetings.
Producing, we have Alex in New York.
What's up, guys?
And Danny Paletti on the socials in Baltimore.
Evening.
And to get us ready for Sunday's return to the Premier League after an international break, it is half of the Noisy Neighbors podcast, Mulv, who's going to help us preview Manchester City. All right, Mulv, can you throw us a bone here? Just a little crumble. Like, we got to have some kind of chance, right?
Well,
okay, well, that's a no.
No, I can make a case for it. I could definitely make a case for it. Do you want me to do that?
Absolutely, and I'm sure you can talk about how Rodri being out of the lineup is part of that.
That was where I would start, mate, honestly. At the start of the season, we were without him. If you remember, he got all the way to the Euro final with Spain, and Pep gave those players that were in that final, because England were in that too, so players like Foden, Stones, Walker, they all got a rest sort of start of the season up until that first international break. So we played without Rodri at the start of the season, and in my opinion, that's the best we've looked was before the international break and before Rodri got back in. The reintroduction of Rodri was great, but he quickly picked up a season-ending injury, unfortunately, in the Arsenal match, and Pep's been trying to figure out how to play without him again since that moment. The struggle we're as a fan base right now we're having is, why were we so good at football without Rodri before the international break and haven't looked as good without him since his injury? Why is Pep doing things a little bit differently than he was the first time we were without him and getting good performances versus now? So Pep, as an opposition team, you never want to give Pep Guardiola a 2-week break to look at things, right? Because he will do his Pep stuff. He'll watch all the video he can get his hands on, and he will figure it out. He just has a track record for doing that. We've had injuries in the past to important key players, and he's figured it out. So my fear for opposition is that he will eventually figure that out. But if I'm going to continue to try to make the case for a Wolves victory, I will tell you that honestly, we haven't looked great since Rodri's been out, and without the goals of Erling Haaland, we're really struggling to find other players who want to chip in and get goals for us. So there are a couple of pennies that could drop. For instance, Phil Foden could get going. That's a possibility. He hasn't yet. He's still sort of coming back from his summer. Savinho has been a really bright spark for us. He's just joined and hit the ground running, but all of a sudden he finds himself not in the starting 11, which is bizarre. So we're not maybe in our best moment right now in terms of creatively. We're really needing somebody else, whether it be from the wings or from just behind Erling Haaland, to creatively do something. You know, that meme, the guy poking the horse with a stick saying do something, right? It's a bit of that at the moment. So I would argue it's not a bad time for Wolves to be playing City. Remind me, where is this match?
It's at Molineux.
Okay, so away for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even more so. So I'll give you that one. I'm just trying to put pennies in the Wolves win jar for you. What else have we got? We do have other injuries, right? Kevin De Bruyne is not fully fit. Nathan Ake's out. Oscar Bob, who was our brightest player over the summer, youngster, really promising player, he's out. Who else are we missing?
What are the influenza rates like in Manchester right now?
Well, of the places I've caught COVID, Manchester is one of them. So, yeah, that's although they've all been on international break, so you never know. Maybe at the Manchester airport, could the flu rate could be up there. But no, obviously, we're a really good side, and even our some of the players who are filling in right now are world class players. So it is going to be a monumental task for Wolves, particularly without Adama Traore, whose test we passed in our last match against Fulham, but barely. I don't know if you saw that he missed like three golden opportunities. So absolutely going to be tough for Wolves to get something, but I would argue not a bad time to catch Manchester City.
What about our old friend Mateus Nunes? How is he going to fit into the mix?
Yeah, so he's not played as much as we would have liked him to have. He's obviously got real competition in the positions that that are his strength, like centrally. So he's even been tried out wide on occasion. Pep is often found throwing his arms up in the air when it comes to Mateus Nunes. What you doing, mate?
We understand that.
The decision making, he's not quite got that down yet. But I would argue there are a few players who ended up to be great successes at City who didn't get it in their first season. Riyad Mahrez being one of them, who turned out fantastic for us after a season. The difference, though, I would say between like a Riyad Mahrez and Mateus Nunes and that second season where everybody hopes that they finally, it clicks and they get it, is that Riyad Mahrez and Jack Grealish is another example, who didn't start great, but second season was really good. The difference with Mati Nunes, though, is that he didn't play a lot in his first season. Both Jack Grealish and Riyad Mahrez played at least half the minutes on offer in their first season. Mateus Nunes didn't. He played very little. So to expect him to have a breakout second season, the likes of Grealish and Mahrez might be asking a bit too much. He is helped by the fact that we do have injuries centrally. De Bruyne, Rodri, that does open some minutes up for other players, but he's competing against players like James McAtee, who's back after being on loan last season. Bernardo Silva can play in there. Phil Foden can play in there. So Ilkay Gundogan is back. So it's on the depth chart, which is an American sports term, but on the depth chart, he still finds himself down the pecking order. But he's creeping in. He's creeping in.
Not to diverge away too far from this match, but I also thought it'd be interesting to learn your take as a Englishman and a Man City fan. How did you feel about the Pep Guardiola taking the England head coaching job? I know that they've since hired Thomas Tuchel, but it's a little bit of club versus country and a little bit of how important you feel Pep is to the City project versus how important he would be to winning England a World Cup.
That's a great question. So I'm very much a club over country man. If you remember, City were not very good for quite a long time. Our only internationals were players like Richard Dunn, who used to play for Ireland. So I could watch England play with really no vested interest other than being an Englishman, right? And that was much more fun for me when it was the likes of, the Beckhams, Gerrards, Lampards, and that lot. I could, take my City hat off for a minute and I could watch those players and enjoy them and want them to win. When City, when we got our investment and when we started buying world-class players who inevitably play for their countries, I found the whole international football experience very toxic, particularly when it came to Raheem Sterling, who the English fan base has not taken to, and he would often get booed. And you see it a little bit with Jack Grealish these days. He gets booed a little bit. There's a section of England fans that, like I don't know if you noticed, there's the whole Bukayo Saka fan base that hates Phil Foden. I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's way too toxic for me. I even went to watch, some internationals, whether it be Euros or World Cup, at my local, English pub here in Dallas. And, as soon as a City player would put a pass wrong, everybody was, it's just, I was like, okay, I'm done with this. So to answer your question about Pep, obviously there is still a part of me, an Englishman, who would love to see England do well internationally, win the World Cup. I mean, that's what it is at this point, isn't it? With the talent that we've got, it's win it or bust. Like, the expectation should be that we're winning it with these players. So part of me would love Pep to take them over, and because I think he would win it with them. I mean, if you see some of the players that are in there, like, you can even throw Cole Palmer in the mix, a City Academy graduate. There's so many Pep type players in the England setup right now that I think he could only succeed. But most of me says, and this is again club over country, I don't want him anywhere near that job. Because the media's, the English media and the relationship with the England manager, you're already seeing it. The fact that little Tommy Tuchel isn't from England, it's just it's dumb. It's really dumb. It's embarrassing as an Englishman, to be honest. But yeah, so a very, very small part of me would love to see it, but most of me says no, stay away from that, because obviously it also means that there's a chance he would stay with City for longer, which I think as a City fan base, we would all love to see that. My take on that quickly, though, is that he may do one more year, but that'll probably be it. He'll probably do 10 and then he'll be off.
Wow.
So how many goals are City going to slot past us?
If depends how you play, honestly. It does. And people forget that. Like, it's particularly City fans. Like, when we're analyzing a performance, it's like, don't forget there is another team on the pitch, right? Like, I think a lot of us have gotten spoiled and used to slapping teams. But the Premier League has, there's so much money in it now and so much talent that has followed that money in, whether it be managers or players, that there's no gimmies, in the Premier League anymore. So if a team decides to defend really deep, put 10 behind the ball, play 5 across the back, it becomes really, really difficult for City to break them down, particularly without Kevin De Bruyne, right? So you need a player like Phil Foden to really come out of his shell this season to impact the game. So I would suggest, if you're going to tell me that Wolves will defend deep, I'd say we won't put that many past you.
One of my favorite quotes of the Premier League season so far was the very underhanded shade that Bernardo Silva threw at Arsenal after your 2-2 draw in September, where he said, Liverpool always face us face to face to try to win the games. From this perspective, the games against Arsenal haven't been like the ones we have had against Liverpool. So yes, it's a different rivalry. I wanted to use that as a jumping off point to get your take on who you view your biggest title rival to be this year, because Liverpool under Slot, like, I feel like they seem way more legit. They've made almost no changes over the summer, and they kind of resemble that Liverpool that really did put up that fight against City.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. The talk of Manchester City's rivals is very funny, because we were always everybody's second favorite club. And we only thought our rivals were Man United, but they were so far out of our league that was a bit of a joke in itself. But nowadays, now that we compete for titles, we absolutely in a certain period have had rivals. Just none of them are Manchester United anymore, which is hilarious. I don't think they've been in a title race for like a decade. So. But enough about them. So, okay, you asked me specifically about this season. Yeah, it's definitely Liverpool and Arsenal again.
And Wolves.
And we'll see. Hey, if you beat us this weekend, I can't rule you out. So, no, you're right about Liverpool and Slot. And what I've noticed about them is that, if you remember the last couple of seasons of Jurgen Klopp, he started looking for a plan B. So Jurgen is very much known for his, what do they call it? Heavy metal football, just constantly running, constantly pressing, what have you. And I think he burned some players out with that, though it was very successful. So towards the end of his stint there, he was looking for sort of a plan B where he could play a slower tempo and still get results. And he started bringing in players that really weren't in the mold of his initial Liverpool like style, right? Much more controlled, much more technical, less of the Jordan Henderson type. So what I think has worked out for them is Slot is those are his type of players. So he's not only got a lot of the energy remaining from the Klopp era in those players, but he's also in Klopp's later years brought in players that suit this new manager really well, in my opinion. So he's sort of got the best of both worlds going. And yeah, I absolutely think they'll take it to the end of the season for sure. Arsenal. I mean, it's the talent that club has amassed, particularly those centre backs, just incredible. And Odegaard's a big miss for them, but if they can weather that storm without him and keep winning, they'll be there at the end as well. I was feeling really confident about City's chances when Ilkay Gundogan came back. I thought, oh, that's the missing piece, you know. But with the injury to Rodri, it's, I mean, I said that, what is that very famous Gary Lineker quote? He says, football's a very simple game. 22 players chase the ball around the pitch for 90 minutes. And the team with Rodri always wins.
Something like that.
I edited it a bit there. That he says, and the German team always wins, is what he said. The Germans always win. But I edited it because I don't know if you remember, Rodri went on that ridiculous winning streak where he hadn't, so that being said, I mean, that's how important he is. And I think the margins with which I thought we could perhaps win this league all immediately dropped to no margin whatsoever, no margin for error whatsoever. Because without him and without De Bruyne for large periods, we're going to be right neck and neck, I think, with Liverpool and Arsenal.
Awesome. Mulv, thanks for taking the time to come on and join us. Really appreciate it. Good luck rest of the season. It's set for on Sunday.
Understood. Understood.
Please take it easy on us. Please.
Hey, thanks as always for having me, fellas. I really enjoy it. Love you guys.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Take care. Bye.
That was Mulv from Noisy Neighbors podcast. Okay, guys, we've kind of heard a little bit there of what he had to say. Paul, what do you think Wolves need to do to keep it close?
Just eradicate everyone's memory and just take us back to 12 months and have Dawson turn back a whole decade and outplay Haaland. But I just can't see lightning striking twice at all at the moment. Even with a change to about 5, there's something up. There's something just not quite right in terms of the vibe at the moment. So you are generally looking for those crumbs of something just to hang your hat on. And I was looking back at the fixtures from last year to see, well, how did that align when we came to play them? And I was thinking, was that Luton game as bad as the Brentford one, in that everyone was expecting us to rock up against Luton and beat them, and that didn't happen. But even for me, I thought that Brentford game was worse. So I just can't see that anything really positive coming through to Sunday, I'm afraid.
Yeah, Brentford, we had 11 players, unlike that Luton game where Bellegarde went out early. Danny, you think the back 5 or the back 3, whatever you want to call it, is a certainty?
Yeah, I think Gary's going to be looking for different options, different solutions than he had against Brentford going forward. And I said before we got started tonight that I think that City is not going to be a great barometer of where we land in the next couple of weeks, but he's going to have to change something. And he's already alluded to it at a press conference. I think we're going to see 3 center backs, even if that means that our only backup is either Alfie Pond from the bench or, dropping someone like Lamina back into the back line if God forbid one of those 3 go off injured. But yeah, it's going to have to be something creative. And to Paul's point, it's like last season it was a bunch of kind of indifferent performances where we kind of always came out on the bad side of it, but we didn't really have any like collapses. It was like, it was a dumb red card for Bellegarde, and we probably should have beat Luton anyway, but like it was still like a competent overall performance, whereas that Brentford one really has made this international break feel very long because it was just it was a collapse. There's no other way to call it.
Alex, could you see a scenario where maybe Lamina or Andre is kind of just dropping back to be like a hybrid sweeper defensive mid?
I could, yeah. I mean, crazier things have happened. We've seen Ruben Neves in that role when a manager was clearly at the end of his rope. So I'm not going to rule it out. I think Gary O'Neill acknowledging after the Brentford match that they do have to change something, to me, gives a little bit more legitimacy to like a total shape change and personnel change. And I also think that there's a chance his hand could be forced to play three center backs because your midfielders, a few of them were out on international duty. You had Andre putting in minutes and getting back very late with from his stint with Brazil. So you may have no choice but to roll out with two midfielders, which is kind of interesting because that's a position of relative depth, but one that we're complaining that they're playing too many of them at once. So maybe this is a good opportunity to have a little bit more balance by leaving out one of either Andre or probably not Lamina, Zhao, or maybe bring Doyle back in, but anything's possible at this point. I have no idea what to expect.
I know Paul is hoping for a Doyle appearance.
Yeah, potentially, but it's that type of player and the I suppose it's more of a cliche, but like the Englishness of him to dig in and pull through this and all hands to the pump and roll your sleeves up and get on with it. Just have that type of spirit, which seems counterintuitive when you're talking about like the pit bull of Joe Gomez or Lamina and his tackles and everything. But it's, I suppose I'm just looking for more of a balance in that midfield, in that they're all very alike, and how can you freshen that up? How can you get some creativity in there, or someone to spread the ball around a little more? But more than that, I just don't feel that we've got that spark, or it doesn't feel like we've got that spark. Like Mulv mentioned about Traore, or last season at home it was Neto. It's like, where's those players that we can look for, even if we are shit, that you can get them the ball and there's the chance that they at least can do something. It doesn't seem like we got one of those players at the moment that would really make you stand up off your seat when they get the ball and get that genuine excitement. And that's why for me it's a little negative. I'm struggling to feel any positives or excitement going into Sunday, just because you haven't got that difference maker.
Which means I totally expect Paul to call a Wolves win here. Let's see the predictions. Danny, what you got?
I'm going to be as positive as I possibly can be and say that City are going to win 2-1.
You're positive City's going to win. Alex?
Yeah, I actually was thinking earlier today that I feel fairly positive, and the result I came up with still was 2-0.
All right, Paul?
My positive was the same as Danny's, in that it'll be like the Liverpool loss at home. But seems he's gone that. I will go even stupider positive and say it's a 2-2 draw.
2-2 draw. Nice. Well, guys, I'm about to do something which is going to cure our woes. So, in preparation for that, I'm calling a 0-0 draw.
Wow.
Mostly because Wolves are just going to sit back and like play all 11 behind the ball.
I meant to ask Mulv. I wonder if Pep would let us play with 2 goalkeepers, but we have to play like with only 9 men on the pitch. You think we would get out with a 0-0 if we did that?
Would the second goalkeeper be Sa or King?
whoever's physically larger, so probably King. Just take up more space in the goal.
No, because they would go like somebody would shoot it just right down the middle, and they'd both look at each other like, "I thought you had it."
Yeah. Probably not something they practice for.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, I teased this last week, made my order, and it came. So last year we were having scoring woes, and I looked up curse breaking, and I found putting salt on a lemon and rubbing it on your body. We had one of our best scoring years in the Premier League last year, so clearly it worked. This year, scoring's not a problem, defense is. So, how can we fix this? Well, I did a little Google search again, kind of took a little Wolves liberty to it, and I have found the solution. It is this candle, the fiery wall of protection, which I got on Amazon. It is made by Coventry Creations, which, as Alex said, is pretty appropriate, seeing as really the Coventry game last year was when things started going to shit. So I am going to light this candle and read a blessing, which you guys are going to repeat after me. And this is going to get clean sheets coming back our way. All right, you guys ready?
Ready.
As
All
ready
right.
as I'll ever be.
All right, so here we go. All right. So, guys, repeat it. Hold on.
There you go. Yeah, you gotta to channel the spirits. You gotta make it a little dimmer, right?
Yeah, hold on. I forget.
Well, I still gotta see it.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
There we go. Okay. All right. So we have the candle.
For the audio listeners, just know that Josh is definitely sitting in a fully dark room, incense, dark draperies, etc. And that's 100% true and not an embellishment.
And this is the Hoodoo Fiery Wall of Protection candle. So, here we go.
Don't talk too hard into the flame because it will be a really bad omen if you blow it out.
I call to my wolves,
I
call to my
wolves.
my warriors all,
My warriors all.
to build a protection,
To build a
Build a
protection.
protection.
to build a wall.
To
build a
Build a
wall.
wall.
3 center backs of armor,
3 center backs of armor.
3 midfielders of fire.
3 midfielders of fire.
Wolves' spirits are safe.
Wolves' spirits are safe.
Their foes' warning is dire.
Their foes' warning is dire.
Forget the anger.
Forget the anger.
Forget the anger.
Don't be sad, mate.
Don't be sad.
mate.
Let this potential for relegation
Let this.
Let this potential for relegation
now finally cease.
now finally cease.
All right. Now we're going to blow it out. And there we go.
Clean sheet incoming.
Yeah, clean sheet incoming. Woo!
Take that, Erling Haaland.
That's right.
I love
Special
it.
thanks to the fiery wall of protection candle. And guys, hopefully that does the trick. It may take, a few days for it to really kick in. So don't use Man City necessarily as the barometer. Sometimes the dark spirits are so tough that it takes a while for the curse to break down completely.
So, still captain Erling Haaland on my fantasy team against a historically bad Wolves defense? Or
No.
Okay.
No.
Noted. Got it.
That would cause major bad juju there, Alex.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Love the commitment.
No Stupid Questions is presented by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. So whether you're celebrating a Wolves victory or winding down after a day at work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of California's wine country with every sip. For a limited time, head to esfuerzowines.com and use the promo code WOLVES for a 15% discount on your wine purchases. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their products responsibly and in moderation.
All right, let's get to No Stupid Questions, where the listeners have a chance to chime in with whatever they want to talk about as it relates to Wolves. You could do so on the show's X handle at WLW Pod, where Danny is manning that what feels like 24/7, all hours of the day.
It's true.
Hello at wholelotofwolves.com is the show's email address. You can reach us there as well. Anything related to Wolves, as you could see, we stray pretty far from Wolves. I mean, we just basically had a seance on air. Let's start with, okay, now this is very, very different from the positivity that you were just channeling, Josh. So I feel like this is a big 180. But we will go and start with Stu's question, who says, considering how amazing they looked last time, will you be buying a Skybet sleeve patch to complete the look next season? Our YouTube viewers watching live or watching back can see the Money Shop Wolves Championship kit, Puma kit with the Skybet Championship badge on the sleeve there. So sounds like he thinks relegation is incoming. But again, this question was submitted before he knew what you were bringing with the hoodoo fiery wall of protection. Is that right?
That's right. That's right.
So yeah. How are we feeling? I mean, it is a good looking kit. There are some really good shirts in the championship. I gotta hand it to him. And that one in particular that Stu submitted, it's a pretty sick shirt.
Yeah.
I love that Money Shop shirt, that black one. It's a nice one. Now, here's my question. I know it costs extra to get the EPL logo on the. Does it cost extra to get the championship logo on?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
ridiculous. Get the hell out of here.
How far down the pyramid do you have to go to where they don't charge you anymore? There probably is no level.
Yeah. I mean, I assume it's just the club or the producer passing on the cost of the sticker itself and, the person's time to iron it on for 10 seconds or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you guys get shirts with the EPL sticker on it? Who gives a shit?
Yeah,
I think my very first one I did.
Yeah.
When I got Raul on the first Premier. Oh, did I get that? Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I think I did too, but ever since,
Well, I feel like
that's
that's a little different because that was their return to the Premier League, so it was more of a big deal. At this point, there is 0.00% chance I would get a championship one.
Well, you say that now, but when if Wolves get double relegated and then come back up to the championship, you'll be so excited about that, right?
Guys, I don't know if I can do a weekly podcast for a team in League One.
Well,
oh man,
no.
It's the likes of Wrexham then as America's team. So
yeah,
I mean,
true.
I'll be honest, that's the reason that I can't do it. Not because I don't love Wolves or because I wouldn't watch League One, because both of those things, I will love Wolves and I would watch League One, but I cannot. It's bad enough dealing with the media narrative of the Big Six. Do you think I could sit around on Twitter with all the insufferable Americans who haven't watched more than a single game of soccer in their lives cheering on Wrexham when they play against Wolves? That I cannot. I will not be on this podcast if we have to play Wrexham.
Paramount Plus came in at a good time. So if Stu is right, then at the very least we won't have to go too far to try to watch Wolves games the way we watch them now on Peacock and NBC here in the States. All right, let's move on. We're not getting relegated. The curse is being lifted.
That's right.
I believe in Josh's dark magic worked last year. It's going to work again. By the way, you know that if somehow they go on to have a really good defensive record after this, And you gotta, like, if they come back to America, you have to like physically give that candle to Mario Lemina instead of the cowboy hat. You got to get a picture. That's the next step in your
That's the
evolution.
next one. Is a
Get
picture with
Mario
the candle.
Lemina to do a seance with us.
Yeah, or
Well,
just get him
I
to
guess
hold the
I'd leave an
candle at least.
Amazon review for the thing as well, which they'd be
Yeah.
like, "What is this?"
You should definitely, especially if things turn out, you should definitely leave an Amazon review.
Some
That don't
like
read.
some person with a candle side hustle in Coventry is going to see their skyrocket. They're going to wake up tomorrow and their PayPal account's going to be like through the roof. They're going to be like, "What in the hell?" With a bunch of sales in Wolverhampton. All right. Adam, also known as Stone Cold Strand Larson on X, writes in, given the circumstances and now seeing what happened to Huang, modern form notwithstanding, should the club have prevented the players from going out on international duty during this window? Of course, Huang did suffer an injury when he went out, and yeah, not great.
So I feel like Wolves have gotten some of these Brazilians by really pushing that, hey, you're going to get so much playing time here that, you're going to be getting those call-ups from Brazil. So I think that plays into it. I kind of wish the club can't sit there and tell them, no, you can't do it. Like, nobody would come to Wolves, anybody of relevance. However, I would have liked to have seen some of the players voluntarily decide to stay in Wolverhampton for training instead of going overseas. It's difficult because World Cup qualifying is going on in South America right now. So that would have been a tough sell for the Brazilians and Santi Bueno. But, Santi, I know he was, man of the match for one of those, but it sure would have been nice if he was here working on a back five.
I think it's a case of, we talk about dark arts and who used to be such a master at this back in their heyday was Alex Ferguson at Manchester United, that all of a sudden their star players would all just have that little hamstring tweak or nursing a bruised big toe, and they would miss those internationals. But obviously we've not got that stature to even get anywhere close to that, nor have we got really the high profile games that you can take a step back from an international break knowing that you'll be playing a Champions League fixture in a week or two. So it just doesn't jive with a club like us, and even the significance of the players and even the countries they're representing, that maybe the likes of Lemina might think that, oh, it's not important enough, or I'm going to skip this international. Probably is. These players want to be playing, representing their countries at the highest level. And
to your point, didn't Lemina miss the last international break with kind of like a phantom-ish injury?
Well, no, I mean, that was when he jammed his knee pretty hard, I think. I don't remember, but it was like, it wasn't totally fake. But I mean, to Paul's point, it's kind of a thing that's not done outside of like the elite teams. I mean, you could imagine a scenario where like right after the international break, Arsenal are playing City, like especially late in the season, and Odegaard decides to not go and says like, "Oh, I twisted my ankle" or whatever, But it's just like it's not all that common, and you kind of have to I don't even think like Bukayo Saka gets away with that. Like you can't be that high profile a player. The interesting thing to look at though, and I mean, this is kind of maybe partly to do with our form, but also, this has been one of the leanest international breaks for us. I often put together schedules because the club insists on putting it out by team as opposed to by airing time of the games. But like we only had one person go to Portugal. We obviously had Carlos Forbes and Rodrigo Gomez go to the under 21s, but it was only Semedo who went. So no Totti, no Jose Sa. We only had Andre go to Brazil. So obviously Cunha hasn't made the Brazil squad in a bit, but João Gomez frequently has. And the other ones are kind of like ones that you'd expect. I mean, Ryan Aït-Nouri's a big player for Algeria. Jorgen Strand Larsen is sort of always going to be sitting behind Holland. Hee-chan is obviously super important to Korea. And I guess, Santi Bueno is still knocking on the door, but that was kind of it. I mean, no Matt Doherty going out. Like I said, no João Gomez. And then we, of course, lost like Pedro Neto, who would frequently be going out as well. So honestly, this is probably the smallest number of people we've sent on international break in a good long while.
I would just say that this may not mean anything, but if I'm trying to put myself in a player's shoes and I'm called up by my national team, aside from just like you don't want to be the club that does that, I feel like you also want to get like they need to experience some joy, and like for morale, it's probably good to go
Yep.
be in that environment and be around guys who have won a football match within the past, however many months. Like maybe some of that good juju can rub off a little bit, and you can bring
And
some of
they
that
do
positive
get-
energy back.
They do get paid for those games, not nearly
Yeah.
like they do club wise, but
Well,
there
and
is money involved.
for some people, it's also an opportunity to see your family and stuff, which
Yeah.
I think is, these guys are human and they might look forward to an opportunity to go see, extended family or immediate family if they're not over in Wolverhampton with them all the time. So,
I mean, it's a really good point. I mean, I would single out Mario Lemina, who I think they played twice against Lesotho, and it's AFCON qualifying. And he played at least 90 minutes in one, maybe 90 minutes in both. And it's just like, it's a place where he goes that he's an important player, but he's not the captain. It's not a thing that is shown on television around the world. Like it's not very easy to find in the US. I'm sure it's available in various parts of Africa, probably in Europe too, but like, it's not, he's not like all over the place, and he gets to go and just, I mean, they beat Lesotho, obviously, it's just like win a couple of games and not in the spotlight. And that can only be a good thing. I mean, obviously there would be benefits to him being back and then working on a shape for City, but there are advantages to him going as well, like Alex said.
Yeah. Okay, let's wrap up with the question from Drew Freakin on X. Do you see Sarabia and Sa leaving to make room for new signings, a loan for Boubacar Traore if healthy, maybe even one for Big Sassy? So we're looking forward to January here. We're talking about how we need a center back. Drew also referenced in a separate tweet that I believe Adam Webster from Brighton was linked to Wolves, which came out like after the fact. In January. So do you see any of those guys mentioned being moved on in order to bring a center back in? Paul, what do you think? Some departures coming?
The one mention of Sarabi again parallels to last season, that he was probably in the exact situation that he's finding himself right now, on the bench, not doing much, people probably questioning him about salary and contributing, and then he comes on against Spurs, changes the game in its entirety, and all of a sudden he's a starter and he's a fulcrum of the team, or taking up certainly one of those attacking advanced positions. So in theory that could feasibly happen again, but I think if it does extend closer to December, given his age, probably a wish to be competing more, given that, I think he could be one that would be looking for a move. I probably think there's a loan option for him out there somewhere in a top European league to go to. Sarr on that same stance, maybe a little trickier for goalkeepers to move, definitely mid-season as well. It's not the type of big money buy you often see. So does something open up based on a injury elsewhere that could see him depart possibly? Buba, I think, is a definite to go out on loan if he's fit come that time, just based on the depth that they got in the centre mid position now. And I can't see currently Sasa being involved unless there's a drastic change, and if that's managerial and he suddenly starts to come into focus based on that. But even then, I think the injuries that he's gone through probably needs a good 6 months of playing regular football to get him back up to speed, and he's not going to get that here. So maybe that is a loan.
I forgot Big Sassy was even on the squad.
He was registered.
Yeah, makes the team photo for this year as well. So
Yeah. Well, and they
Can
said
he-
in the last update that he's back on the grass. Not with the group or anything, but that's getting pretty close. And it's not like we need another person up front, but I think there's a scenario in which he makes the bench for some games before January. I don't know that it's any more than that, but
Here's a question for you guys. With the success that Mosquera had in MLS and then how it kind of carried over, do you kind of ask Boubacar, hey, would you be willing to go to MLS? Kind of a similar type profile as Mosquera.
it's gonna be similar
Danny's
where he's
looking.
probably gonna get sent off a couple of times.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you guys have stronger opinions. I don't see. I mean, like, I love that Mosquera had that success, but there's not like a ton of players who come over and do that kind of development in the U.S. And I know that there was a lot of sort of worry about it when Mosquera came over. When he did, people thought like, oh, that's him on his way out. And I think it's like not quite a miracle, but it was a bit of a surprise to people that he was basically their player of the season in a very, very successful season, which is not common as a center back with a team that does well. Usually a team that does well, player of the season is somewhere up top. So I don't know. It seems like an exception, but I don't know. I'm not as plugged into MLS to say who he'd even go to.
Everybody could use a sexy midfielder.
The thing I always feel about it that feels weird is the incongruence in the schedule, which is sort of built in, and I don't have strong feelings about it, but it's like if he goes out to an MLS team in January, which makes sense for the MLS team, he's there for the season.
Right.
Then it's like, well, what do we do with him in the fall? Can we recall him? Like, that probably makes it less attractive to the MLS team. And do we even want him to be recalled? And then he comes back like midway through next season, like Mosquera did. But then, like, what happened with him? We sent him on a different loan just to get to the end of that season. It's just, it's kind of a mess. I don't envy anybody who has to deal with that. I'm sure it's hard enough with all the leagues where the schedules actually sync up.
Yeah. The Big Sassy call out was a bit of a throwback, but it got me thinking. I wonder if maybe not alone, because I don't think he'd be ready. Like Paul said, he's got to play a lot, but like, will there be a role to play for him at Wolves before the end of the year? Because like, if Geddes goes out in January, like I know we have a lot of forwards, but we don't really have like my Bruno Lage is going to be showing a real number 9 outside of Jürgen Strand Larsen. Like he would be the closest thing if you're going to do a like for like substitution. He would be the closest thing on the Wolves squad to that with Strand Larsen. And he is like, for his size, kind of sneakily mobile like Larsen is as well. When healthy with 2 working knees, which is a big if.
Huge asterisk.
And I have no idea. We don't have the Carabao Cup anymore. I would assume Geddes would play in the FA Cup. And I know he comes on as a sub, but he comes on and like he feels like a shape changer when we're just throwing crap at the wall trying to get back into a game. But if Wolves set up in a structure where the role Larsen plays is like a pivotal role, like when we had Raul, I wouldn't hate Sasha being a utility player who comes in, plays 10 minutes here and there. That's also much fewer minutes to wear on the now surgically repaired right and left knees. So I don't know.
Hey, it worked in the Everton game last year.
Exactly. Those fixtures last year, you're looking back, it was him who won us the 3 points at Everton when we had a struggle start to the season. And then up he popped at Bournemouth again, a game that we went behind in and clawed it back, didn't play exceptionally well versus 10 men. It was him popping up at the end to get those 3 points as well. So that was pretty crucial at those stages in the season, which is sometimes forgotten. So I think you're just looking back to how sparse that bench was last year, and you want to do everything in your power not to go to the lengths of having youth team players on it. So if that means Sasa, then keep him.
Yeah, agreed. All right, good questions. Thank you everybody for participating, and thank you to our friends at Esfuerzo Wines. 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. Head to esfuerzowines.com. Use the promo code WOLVES at checkout and get 15% off your order.
And that brings this week's show to an end. We are going to be back we're going to be back earlier next week, having the Sunday game against Man City to review, and then looking forward or not to a tricky away trip to Brighton the following Saturday. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you're enjoying us on YouTube, if you have not yet been over, do come out and check out the channel, subscribe and like our content. That would be much appreciated. Thank you to Alex producing, Danny on the socials, and let's just take that black magic, dark arts to your higher power. Tell them up the mighty Wolves, bring us clean sheets, and we'll see you next week.